You're listening to the Back Home Network, presented by Home Field Apparel.
Right up Meridian, baby.
Welcome back. So good to hear Slick Leonard yelling right up Meridian. He'd be loving this series. Pacers up 3-1. Thank you for joining us. We got Tony with us as always. And as always, Right Up Meridian is part of the Back Home Network. Check us out. Check out all the stuff. We got Assembly Call going through all of the good portal signings. Crimson Cast, I'm doing one later on today with Ryan Phillips. So we're going to start firing that back up. I know Galen and I have both been busy, but we're seeing stuff. We're still around. And as always, you can support the Back Home Network by checking out Home Field Apparel. Use promo code HOME23 for 15% off your first purchase. Tony, I was there for both games. You were there for Friday night. Give us your review of being in the house for the first playoff game in quite some time at Gainbridge.
It was awesome.
It really was.
I mean, just really neat. I try not to be too hyperbolic, but it was one of the better playoff games I've ever been to. I've been to several, and just the atmosphere. The fans were electric. It was kind of an up and down game, but I truly believe the fans played a factor in kind of like getting the Pacers going again in overtime, because it's such. I don't know what the numbers are, but I feel like if somebody makes a last second shot to send it to overtime, like they win 90% of the time.
Yeah.
I completely made that stat up. 68% of the stats I make up are right every time.
Right.
But, it just seems like the momentum was certainly on Milwaukee's side, and then like the fans were able to flip that pretty quickly. Hats off to everybody that was in the building, but it was fantastic, man. I just love Gainbridge. It's such an awesome venue, especially now that they've done the updates and things to the concourse, and it's just easy, man. Like to go to a game, it's the concession stands aren't super long lines. The little deals where you can just walk in, walk out are awesome. I was with my pregnant wife, and that it's easy for her to get around and not have to be all crowded and stuff. And so just was an awesome atmosphere. Had a great time. Obviously got to see a great game. That certainly weighs into it when the Pacers get the W, but my review is just fantastic.
Yeah, same. I've been a season ticket holder for a while, and I went to those playoffs against the Celtics, which was kind of just, I remember those being duds because I think we knew we were going to lose that series, and we did. And I remember some of those games against the Raptors for a while were kind of interesting, but I was trying to think back when we had an opportunity to take a series lead in a series. It's been a while. I remember, my wife and I went to a game. God, I need to pull it up. I think it was like 2016 or 2017 where Bojan Bogdanovic went nuts and we beat the Cavs. That was the LeBron Cavs, if memory serves right.
Yep.
And that was a great game. And that's kind of the last great game that I remember until this weekend, which was just awesome. The atmosphere Friday night, it was juiced. It was electric. It was, got to give the Pacers marketing folks credit. If you go to iPacers on YouTube, he has videos of it. But so shout out to iPacers. The promo video, the intro video for the team was brand new for the playoffs. It was kind of like a Eye of the Tiger remix. It was sick. It was totally on fire. Awesome. It got everyone. It was fired up. It was great. So shout out to the Pacers marketing folks. But great game, and you could really hear the cheers for like Siakam, for Turner, for Halliburton when they were announced. It was awesome, and it did feel like the team was buoyed because in that game 3 they came out in the first quarter and just blew the Bucks' doors off, which was important because they kind of then sagged back into it. And I felt like game 4 was also pretty electric. Didn't feel quite like 10% less, but it was still really good in the house. But you could feel that the Pacers, when they needed to make that run, the crowd was there to push them. And I do think, I haven't been to all the arenas. It does feel like, Gainbridge the Pacers have a nice home court advantage. And the thing they have running for them too is, hopefully we'll get there in 5 or 6 years. But when you have a city that loves their team like this, but has also not been in the playoffs for a while and not really had a lot of playoff success back when they were in the playoffs in, 2015 to 2019, you get built up interest, you kind of built up, excitement, and the crowds are always a little more amped than they will be at, let's say, like Denver or Boston, where year in, year out, they're in the playoffs, and it's kind of like we expect this. I do think the Pacers really do have a home court advantage. Unfortunately, next round will probably run into the same thing with the Knicks. We're going through the similar things. That could be a wild series, but we got to get through Milwaukee first. Your game thoughts on what you saw, atmosphere aside, what were your game thoughts from Game 3 and Game 4 this weekend against Milwaukee?
Yeah, there were points in both games where I got a little frustrated with just kind of some of the little things I felt like the Pacers were lacking a bit. I mean, the defense, we know, it's not where it needs to be like championship level team. It's been that way all season, but like,
right.
It just kind of lets the Bucks hang around when they can kind of put the nail in the coffin. Some of those defensive things. So it's I don't want them to get bad habits because they're playing, in without Dame and Giannis especially. It's an inferior team, and so you can kind of get away with some bad habit stuff, but like you wouldn't be able to do that against the Knicks in the next round, and then obviously the Celtics or whatever may happen. So there were some points in both games where I was kind of like, come on, guys, like, kick it into gear here.
Yeah.
Which fortunately they were able to do. Ultimately your job is to win, and they pulled out wins in both games 3 and 4. In Game 4, they ended up, making that late run where it kind of were able to extend that lead. But that's my biggest fear here when you play like a team like the Bucks. They've really got nothing to lose at this point. They've got several guys. Like I learned on Sunday night that Gallinari is on the Bucks.
Yeah, I know.
Like I literally did not know that. And so there's goofy things like that, and then it also reminds you that like all of these guys are pros. Like even the guys that are 10, 11, 12 on the bench, they can come in and make an impact on the game. So it kind of reminds you of that too. But overall, like you can't be mad about 2 wins at home in the playoffs. And I thought Halliburton getting going, especially last game, was good. Pat Bev chirping about look at his stat line, and anybody can get that many assists when they play 40 minutes a game or whatever. I hope that fuels him even more. I feel like that's the type of thing that can get Halliburton going in a good way. And I think he's on a good track and trajectory here. Like the first couple games of the series really kind of put up some stinkers. Game 3, obviously 1 for 12 from 3, but hits the game-winning shot. And he kind of took that momentum and it fueled him into Game 4, and hopefully can kind of ride that high moving into Game 5. And then, Siakam a little bit back down to earth the last couple of games after, just lights out Game 1 and Game 2. But then you go to Miles Turner, and it's like, man, like how fortunate were the Pacers that the Suns matched that DeAndre Ayton contract, and we were able to stay with Turner on a much more team-friendly deal and, quite frankly, a better fit for the franchise. So very grateful that Miles Turner's a Pacer. It was awesome that he kind of had that moment where the crowd was chanting his name as he hits his second straight 3. Like it was kind of a culmination of a lot of years of kind of like pent-up frustration to just kind of like burst out. And it's like, all right, this dude's a Pacer. He needs to be a Pacer dang near forever. He might have a late career switch or something, but like, now it's time to start talking about like his next contract and things like that. So, overall, like I said, very happy with 2 wins. I hope that the Pacers don't host another playoff game for a week or so in an ideal world. And they can close this out in Game 5.
No, I echo obviously a lot of the things you mentioned. It was funny. I'll talk about my buddy Robert a little bit because he and I went to the game. He's a Bucks fan. I still call him a friend. I don't know why. I have friends who just, no one I know is like now a Pacers or an IU fan. Like I've just surrounded myself with neighbors who are all fans of other teams. And maybe I just need new friends. That's could be the answer. But he and his son went to the game 4 with us, with me and my son. But we were talking after Game 3, and he was at a soccer match. As all of you with kids know, it's all soccer season, baseball season. So he was watching part of the game. He was like, man, I stopped watching. The Pacers went up big. He's like, how'd we come back? Because I picked up in the 4th quarter. And I mean, I was there. I was at the game. I was kind of like, I don't know, man. You guys just kind of chipped away. It's like, this is what the Bucks do, is there's not one thing where you're like, outside of Lillard going for 38 points, a lot of the games in games 2, 3, and 4 have kind of been like, well, how do the Bucks come back and there's not like, oh man, this guy went off or this, but it's just they kind of slow it down and they grind you down, and that's what they do. And that's the thing that has been concerning for me over the last 2 games is when I see the Pacers run and go fast, they just own the Bucks, and the Bucks cannot keep up. What's interesting, though, is you look at the pace stats for the playoffs. The Pacers are the 9th fastest team thus far in the playoffs. For a team that was, I think, 2nd fastest in the regular season, they've really been slowed down. Now, the Bucks are trying to do that, and so credit to the Bucks for getting it done. But to be middle of the pack in pace. Now you're only talking about 3 to 4 possessions. The Pacers are at 93 possessions a game. The Nuggets are the fastest at 96. You're not talking a huge spread here, but they're getting slowed down by the Bucks, and that does concern me for the rest of the series and looking forward. It's because the Knicks are a kind of team that can slow you down as well, and so I'd like to see the Pacers find a way to kind of keep that pace up as much as they can, because when they're fast, they look better. But I'm with you, man. Miles Turner, the weekend he had, we've talked about it a lot on this podcast. He's a guy who has been in trade rumors, who has been at moments felt like it's going to be his team, and then, oh, no, it's Oladipo's team, and then, oh, no, it's Halliburton's team. He's just been there, and I think he's really, really unsung in just nationally, because I think people don't really know who he is. He never gets mentioned in any of this stuff outside of some trade rumors, but I mean, the guy is a great rim protector, and then he is a prototypical 3-and-D guy, and the stats for the weekend are just awesome. I mean, game 3, he goes 10 for 21, 4 for 10 from 3, and then game 4, he's 7 from 9 for 3. Just an unbelievable weekend, shooting almost 50% from 3 for the weekend, and most of them were wide open shots. And, the looks that he's getting, there's no reason why he can't keep this up, and I think that's where I want to keep talking about this weekend, but that's where I look ahead to game 5. This is a big moment for this Pacers team because the Bucks are hurt. We're recording this Tuesday at 10:50 a.m. Eastern. I don't know what Lillard or Giannis's health looks like for tonight. Even if they both come back, they're not going to be 100%.
Both were listed as doubtful yesterday.
Yeah. I mean, this is a moment for the Pacers where you have a lot of different ways you can score. You have a lot of guys who can get it done. This is a moment you kind of got to close it out. Like, we're at a point now where don't give this Bucks team a chance to kind of screw around and keep you close. Like, just put them out, get it done, and move on. But no, this weekend was awesome. It was great to see that the crowd got into it, and it did feel a little bit too like, guys now have their playoff footing where Siakam knows he can get his, and if he doesn't know it, Turner knows he can get his. And then you also felt like, for me, it felt like Halliburton kind of got a little Halliburton-y. He kind of got it back. He was hitting some threes, went 5 for 12, had a couple that damn near went in but rimmed out. It felt like Halliburton is slowly kind of rounding back into shape as this playoffs goes along.
Yeah, which is fantastic. Obviously, for the Pacers to make any run here beyond the Bucks, they've got to have, at least a 90% Halliburton. I don't think they're going to get 100% Halliburton the rest of the year just based on his injury, but you're going to need the best version of what he can be. You can't have some stinkers in a stat line where he goes 4 for 9 or whatever it was in game 1.
Yeah.
What's been awesome for me is I'm totally with you on the pace stuff. I want to see the Pacers play faster. Obviously it takes 2 to tango, and the Bucks are certainly going to slow things down. I guess the plus side of that is they have gotten slowed down and still been able to win, which is good, obviously. Again, I think the Bucks are probably inferior talent-wise as it currently stands with their injury stuff, but the Pacers are still showcasing. I mean, let's not forget, too, the Pacers have put up some absolute stinker losses this season against teams they absolutely should not have done that against. And so the fact that they still, they've had a couple of those games in this series and still been able to find ways to win them is definitely a good thing. What I really like to see, and it's just a testament to how the Pacers move the ball and just their offensive firepower, but, they're averaging 31 assists per game in the series and 8 turnovers per game. That's pretty unheard of. That's almost 4 assists to every turnover that, the Bucks are able to force, and with how many, how often they're moving the ball and stuff, it's just great. I mean, I think Pascal Siakam has a 19-to-1 assist to turnover ratio right now. And with how much the ball's been in his hands, like that's pretty impressive as well. So, the Pacers' offensive firepower has still been on display, especially with the 3-point shot on Sunday evening. That was good to see them kind of round back into form there, because again, they are prone to a stinker every now and again, which they were in game one. But as we talked about on this pod, they typically have found ways to bounce back pretty quickly and get that shot falling again, which they have been able to do. But I'm with you. Tonight seems like a big make or break night for this series. Like, you can send the Bucks, vacationing. There's gonna be questions around Doc Rivers and Giannis and all that stuff. Like, make that the narrative tonight.
Yeah.
Don't let this thing now be the narrative of like, can Giannis and Dame come back? Can they get going? Can they win this series? And this is a young Pacers team that they haven't really felt a lot of playoff pressure to this point. And it's like, you wonder about like, that could be a good thing where it's like, okay, they don't know what this pressure means, but it's also like, as things mount more and more and more, you just worry about, them clinching up a little bit more as things go on.
And you've seen they have clinched up, when the pressure's been tight. This is the negative, I would say, of this team, which is just the way this team is going to be. Thus far in the playoffs, when the pressure has ramped up, I'm not sure they have responded. And here's what I mean, in that in game one, the pressure was up and they laid a dud. In game two, they responded, but they got up. And far be it for me to ever quote Bobby Portis, because I think he's saying it as kind of a neg, but there is a, front runner is not the right way I want to say it, but there is kind of a going downhill with this team. When things are running right, this team looks like, honestly, an Eastern Conference champion team. Like when things are going right, they look unbelievably hard to beat. The trouble is their defense is not great. And then, in game three, they were doing well when they were doing well, and then it kind of ground down. But the thing that's concerning to me is when it got to overtime, that's when things really stopped, and you could see we were getting bad shots, and then the shots we were getting, we were missing them tight because guys had open shots. Neesmith had a couple of open shots, and he's just front rimming them. What saved us is I think we got 5 offensive rebounds in one possession, but you had to miss 4 shots to get those rebounds. And I don't have, stat for stat or play for play, but, being there watching it, a lot of those were good shots. We just looked tight and scared. And then, all credit, they got a bunch of rebounds. They got the shots they needed. And then Ty did get the floater when he needed. So they did convert, but man, it was a struggle to get there. And then game 4, for the most part, they kept the, 6 or 8 point lead most of the time. All of that said, I am concerned when things really grind down and when you're looking at a 1 possession game with a minute to go, the Pacers don't seem to have that ability to kind of continue to run downhill. They're great in the middle of a quarter going on a run. And so that's concerns me, but I think it's also just means they have to know that. And that's why you got to just have a good run at Milwaukee and just don't let it get tight near the end of the game because, game 3, you were basically playing the same team you're playing now, and that there was no Giannis, and Dame made it very clear that he was just a decoy in overtime. Like, he was not healthy, so he wasn't moving around. And so that was basically just a Middleton team, and that team kind of stymied the Pacers to a point they missed 4 shots in a row. So that is something that is concerning, but it's also something I don't think it's going to be solved this playoff run. I think this is just the way this team is constructed, is they are a free-flowing, run-around, go nuts offense, but if things really slow down, they're not a lock-it-down defensively, and we're going to get 2 and then stop you for 2. That's just not the way this team is constructed. You just have to know that and just don't let the Bucks get close tonight.
Absolutely. And, they were able to put some distance between them. Like, the Bucks zone was kind of causing them some issues. Yeah. And then once they got the ball into the middle and then were able to kick out from there and knock down shots, like, it sounds so simple, but like when shots go in, the game becomes a lot easier for everybody. I know that's groundbreaking here, breaking news here on the pod.
Coach Tony.
But
make shots,
but
man.
It's that's why I'm no longer in the coaching.
Right.
My team didn't make any shots. No, but so in all seriousness, though, like, they were able to penetrate that zone a little bit and then get kickouts from there. And it wasn't like ISO looks into a 3-pointer, which I think made a big difference. The ball was moving. they were getting great clean looks and then getting shots up versus earlier in game 4 and even in parts of game 3 against that zone, they were kind of ISO balling it and trying to create shots from there. And that just wasn't as good of a free flowing offense. And then, like you said, they started getting tight. But like you said, ultimately they did what they needed to do to win the games. It's much more fun to dissect what went wrong in wins
Yes.
than it is in losses, for sure.
The other question I have for you is just, I'm curious your thought on the chippiness in this series. You know, there's something brewing here. The Bucks don't like us. I don't think we like the Bucks, and that's fine. I've always come back to it. It's great. I thought game 4 was interesting because where I sit, we're relatively close to the corner across the Pacers side, and so I was looking direct. You know, Siakam had the dunk, and he was looking directly toward us. He wasn't looking at me. He was looking at Portis. He didn't say a word. He just stared him down, and they called the tech, which I thought was kind of weak. And then 2 plays later, Pat Beverly can't help himself. He does the too little, talks a bunch of garbage on the way back. I think in a vacuum, I honestly don't think either of those should have been technicals. I do think if you call the Siakam one, then you have to call the Pat Bev one. Like, you can't call Siakam for looking and then let Pat Bev just talk a bunch of nonsense. To me, neither of those should have been techs. It felt like that is something you and I text about. You had said this to me, so I'm stealing your point. I'll let you reiterate it. But like, it felt like that raised the tension, and then the Nembhard and Bobby Portis thing came up. But it's interesting. You know, people are getting a little bit worked up. It's like, dude, this is the playoff series I remember, and I don't want to turn into melee stuff, but I wish the NBA would pump the brakes a little bit on trying to stop all of this. You have 2 teams that are trying to get to the same place. They think they're evenly matched, and you're playing the same team every other day. People are going to piss you off. It's just like, it's going to happen. You're getting tired. And you also have guys who are instigators. We look at it, Portis and Pat Bev are annoying, and they do stuff every single play that's annoying. We have to look in the mirror a little bit. They're on our team. I like them. But like, Nesmith and Nembhard are in the same boat. Like, they are also kind of guys who are pushing your buttons.
Poking.
Yeah. And you need guys to do that, but there's 4 of those dudes, and they're going to get into some scuffles. I look at it as kind of like, this is what we need a little bit more of in basketball. The Portis Nembhard thing got a little bit too far, obviously. And if you're Portis, you're pissed. You
just an idiot. Dumb move.
You cannot get ejected. Like, they need Bobby Portis in that game. I wonder about tonight if Nembhard's going to really try and push Portis's buttons. For the Pacers on the road, you're obviously not going to have the same juice as a home crowd. But anyway, those are my thoughts on the chippiness. I stole your thought on the technicals, but what are your thoughts on some of the chippiness in the series that's going on?
Yeah, I love it. It's playoff basketball.
Yeah.
That's why I thought the texts were silly, because it's like the whole marketing promo into the game was like, TNT was showing like the the fire and the everybody's passion and like slow-mo shots of guys shouting. Right. And then it's like, as soon as the game's on, it's like, nope, we're not doing this.
That's a fair point.
And so it's like, you want that fire and that passion, especially when the playoffs are on. More casuals are tuning in, and that's not what anybody is trying to see. Like, people should never know the officials' names. Like, they shouldn't make it about them. And like, so many of them just carry like this chip on their shoulder. And I get it. You don't want fights to happen, but like you said, I felt like those texts raised the tension in the building rather than just kind of letting some of that stuff go. Maybe you say something to them afterward, like, hey, knock it off. Don't do that again. Or, warn them, or whatever the case may be. But to me, they raised that tension level by assessing those technical fouls. And then, the Nembhard, Bobby Portis stuff. Like, Portis, just you're an NBA vet, dude. Like, you cannot get yourself in a situation like that. Like, the fact that Nembhard in his second year after the game was like, I wasn't going to do anything. I wanted to stay in the game. And then Bobby Portis, who's been in the league for 7-8 years, is the one that like couldn't control his emotions. Like, to me, I feel good about that. Like, Nembhard was cognizant of the fact, like, I'm probably going to get teed up for this push, but I'm not doing anything beyond this. Like, I'm going to let them know I'm here. You're not going to just bully me, but I'm not going to fight you type of thing. And so I appreciate that in terms of Nembhard. Like, I'm going to play with an edge to a certain point. Because Bobby Portis, like, that's who he is. He feeds off of that type of stuff. And he needs that. It kind of reminds me a little bit of like Lance Stevenson for the Pacers. Like he
100%.
fed off of just a little bit of nonsense, and we loved him for that. And so that's like Bobby Portis for Bucks fans. But yeah, I think it's the NBA is doing a little too much. Like I get you don't want fights breaking out during the playoffs or anything, but like it's go on a family vacation with your entire extended family and see if some people don't annoy you for 5 or 6 days at a time.
For a week. That's a great call.
Like that's the thing is most of these guys, like the NBA is a brotherhood. Like once this series is behind them, they can dap up and they can be buddies and they can go on fishing trips together or whatever. Like, but they're competitors. Like that's the part I love. That's why I love watching Anthony Edwards on the Timberwolves, because he's just like, screw everybody else. You're my opponent. I'm going at your throat. I don't care if you're my best friend. Like I'm going to talk trash to you. And like, that's what I love about the game. So I think the NBA is doing a little too much to try to stymie some of that. And in effect, like we said, it's almost raising tensions a little bit.
Agreed. So looking at Game 5 tonight, I've said this for a while. If you're the Bucks, we don't know what Giannis what his real injury is. I will say, it's 5 seconds, but in Game 3 when Lillard went out in the second quarter, I believe, and went to the locker room, Giannis walked back to the locker room, and I watched him walk back, and he looked really gimpy. Now, again,
I saw the exact same.
Yeah, and again, it's me watching from across the stadium for 2 minutes. He could have just had something funky. He could have had his foot asleep for all we know. But he was not walking like he was walking like a guy with a limp. So if I'm the Bucks, like I think the Pacers have put them in a very tough position, because if you're Milwaukee, you're looking at this as like, all right, man, we're down 3-1. If we bring Giannis back, it gives us a chance to beat the Pacers. But then what are we doing? Like, are we going to really beat the Knicks and the Celtics? Now, maybe, because Porzingis is now a question mark. Like that, we knew that was going to happen at some point this year. It did happen. So maybe their calculus changed. They think they can win the East, but can you win it without Lillard? And if Lillard's out, like there's a lot of question marks for the Bucks. And if I'm Milwaukee, I'm like, look, this was kind of a season from hell. Things are not working out. Do we really want to risk future injury on Giannis on a season where I just don't know if we're going to get a chip? And that has to be their goal, is to win a championship. So I would be surprised to see Giannis play tonight. I'd be surprised to see Dame play tonight. And if those are the cases, this is, there are no must wins, but this is a game the Pacers just, you got to win. Like those two guys are out. You are the better team. Unfortunately, the Pacers have had issues putting games like this away, but there's matchup problems for the Bucks all over the place if those two guys aren't playing, because Miles Turner, if he's shooting 50% from three for the series, he's shooting 48% from the field. He's second leading scorer on the Pacers and not far behind. Siakam's at 25.5 a game. Turner's 24.5 a game. That's with Siakam having the two wild games in Milwaukee. So Turner's a problem for them, but you could see that they were going back to Indy. Doc made some adjustments and they weren't going to let Pascal go nuts, and it allowed Miles to go nuts. And so now do you redo things like, all right, we're going to, show on Miles a little bit more, and we know that Lopez can't get out on him. So, we're going to have Portis go double, Turner or chase him off the line. If you do that, you now have single coverage against Siakam. You now have Beverly against Siakam. What are you going to do with that? Like, there's matchup problems all over the place for the Bucks with this team. So I think this is a game 5 where you've got to find a way to close this out. And really, if you get up on the Bucks again by 10 or 12, you've seen it a lot. The Bucks, I mean, it's crazy to say for a team that's won a title, that they kind of fold. Like they give up, or they do dumb stuff, or give up's the wrong thing to say, but they've shown when things start getting tight, they either fold it up, or Bobby Portis gets ejected, or just they haven't handled adversity well in the series, but all season. That's a team that's gone 500 in the last 40 games because they haven't shown an ability to kind of step it up when they need to.
Yeah, in terms of, what they did in terms of adjustments, and they started leaving Miles open essentially, and he knocked down some huge shots. Well, then in the middle of game 4, they started trying to keep Lopez tight to Miles, and I think 4 straight plays, Nembhard just turned the corner and got a layup.
Yep.
Like off the ball screen, because they were no longer like in drop coverage. They were more so pressing Miles. So like, again, it goes back to what we talked about before the series even started. If you go Doc versus Rick head to head, I want Carlisle
100%.
And so I think, he just thinks the game in a better way, I think, than Doc. So again, it's an advantage I love having for the Pacers that, when Milwaukee makes those adjustments, the Pacers are able to make those adjustments on the fly to counter it. So that's been great to see as well. So I'm with you, man. Like, I think I would love to see the Pacers just come out and land a knockout haymaker right off this jump here tonight and just kind of leave no doubt quickly. They kind of did it in game 3, and then the Bucks chipped away at it. But in an elimination game, if you're able to just come out, kind of jump the gun here and come out strong, like, I think, as you mentioned, you might just see the Bucks fold, and you can kind of ease up. I don't want to say ease up because you don't want to ease up in a playoff game, but you can kind of ease into round 2 where you're now going to get some time to rest, heal some things, or bumps and bruises or whatever. If you are able to close out tonight, it's just tonight's a bigger game than in what it would look like on paper.
No, I totally agree, because if Giannis and Dame doesn't play and the Bucks are able to keep it kind of messy and close like they did for most of game 4, but then they close it out and win somehow, you are still coming home. But now game 6 is as must win as a must win as you're going to get, because this is your last chance at home. Game 7, who knows? But you're also, every single minute you let the Bucks stay in this series, the more likely you're going to see Giannis and Dame both active. And let's just say you go to game 6 and they're both active, even at 40% or 50%, those guys are problems. I mean, this is do the Pacers win this series if Giannis and Dame are 100% healthy the whole time? Don't know. I think it would have been an interesting series. Probably not. Like, I don't know, but it's definitely a different team. All that said, don't care. Like, do not care.
Exactly.
Got to win the series. Let's get it done. But yeah, you don't want to give the Bucks the opportunity to get a little bit ahead of steam, and then suddenly Giannis and Dame come back. And it's like, if they come back and they're able to play well and they win game 6, now suddenly the Pacers, they're the ones with the tight assholes. They're the ones who are looking at having to go to Milwaukee. Now the Bucks are getting some steam. And it's like, now you're letting maybe the Knicks sit on ice for a couple of days. They get healthy while they're waiting for you. Everything is lined up here for a really fun second round. And, this is what big boy teams do. And this is kind of this is the whole reason we wanted this team in the playoffs. Again, I will caveat, we are still in this is all gravy. The Pacers could lose their next 3 games, and this was still a successful season. Like, that just hard stop. It'll be slightly disappointing, but you can't say the season was a disappointment at any point from here on out. That said, this is one of those, like, are you going to show that, like, it's the Bill Simmons thing, like, checkpoints, like checkpoints on your career. And like, Anthony Edwards is starting to show those checkpoints. This is a team, young team that we hope is going to be better over the next 5 or 6 years. This is an early checkpoint. It's like, all right, man, you have a chance to close out an opponent. They are a wounded team. They're not the team you thought they were, but it's still the playoffs. Finishing off a team is that next boss you got to beat in the game. Can you do that? And doing that would be a nice little check mark to be like, all right, man, when the Pacers smell blood, they can go in for the kill.
Absolutely. And on the road, like,
Yeah.
The Bucks fans are going to be, electric, and Tyrese, poked the bear a little bit and said that their playoff crowds were worse than the Pacers regular season crowds. And so I'm sure they'll be amped up, ready to go.
Oh yeah. They're going to be on him. They're going to be sure as hell all over Nimhart, all over Neesmith, probably all over Siakam for having big games. Like, yeah, it's going to be ugly for the Pacers up there.
Which is awesome. Like, I'm excited for it.
Let's just have some fun. We're just 2 podcasters. Let's look ahead. The Pacers probably will play the Knicks. As I look at that series, just on paper, your initial thoughts, what are your feelings for how that series might go?
Brunson scares me, certainly.
Yeah.
He's electric, and the Pacers have some struggles with guys like that and stopping them. But it's 2 like totally different types of teams. Like, it's oil and water in terms of how they play.
Yeah.
They're a Tibbs team. They're going to grind you out. They're going to D you up. And, they've got OG Anunoby, who's kind of their lockdown guy that they're going to put on, your best players and stuff like that. So it's like 2 totally different teams, but I like it. I mean, I thought the Pacers, up until the last like 5 minutes of the season, I thought that's who the Pacers were going to face in round 1. And I didn't hate the matchup opportunity against them. So I think it should be a fun series if they make it there. It's exciting that the Pacers have an opportunity to play some May basketball. It's been, was it 2014 was the last time they won a playoff series?
Yeah. So the last time they won a playoff series was 2014. They went to the Eastern Conference Finals, and they didn't make it the next year. That was the Paul George breaking his leg year, and then from 15-16 to 19-20, they lost in the first round every year.
So it's like having that opportunity is exciting, but
yeah,
and like you said, it's like it's gravy from here, no matter what happens. But it would be fun to have like that old Pacers Knicks rivalry revived, like because it's going to be the same type of way. Like Brunson and Tyrese are going to go be teammates in battle for the starting point guard position in the Olympics here. In a couple months, and so it's like that's exciting stuff, and I like the way the Pacers match up. Like I'm not like 100% they're going to win it or anything like that, but I think they match up well. It's a weird matchup because they don't play similar styles, but I think I would give the Knicks the nod a bit just because the way playoff basketball is played. But the Warriors and stuff have showcased like there's a shift in that like defense and grinding and that like is what wins it. Like the Warriors did it with a lot of good offense for several years. So it's like it's not like it's insurmountable or anything like that. So all that said, I like the matchup. It's a lot better than if you were going to match up against the Celtics.
No, I agree, and I'm with you. I think they have a real puncher's chance against the Knicks. I think that would be, like you said, an unbelievably fun series. But you look at what the Knicks have done thus far in the playoffs, and Jalen Brunson has been awesome. He's averaging 33 points a game, but it drops way off. Second leading scorer for that team is Josh Hart at 16 points a game, and then OG at 13, Miles McBride at 12, and Hartenstein at 10. DiVincenzo is also averaging 10. His three-point shooting has come down a little bit to earth, shooting 34% in the playoffs from three. It again, the Pacers would need to run in that series. I worry about, the Bucks have been able to slow them down. I think the Knicks will be able to slow them down as well. But I look at it from the other way too, that I think the Knicks are going to have some unbelievable matchup problems on that team. It's like, all right, Hartenstein's going to guard Miles Turner. Who's getting Siakam? Is that OG? So you got OG on Siakam. Well, then, all right, who's got Nesmith and who's got Halliburton? Because Brunson's not exactly a lockdown defender. I think the Pacers can create some matchup problems there where, like, I don't think Hartenstein can guard Miles as far out as he needs to. And, if the Pacers really start running, the Knicks have only played 9 players this whole playoffs. They're a small team. Bogdanovich is hurt. DiVincenzo hasn't been playing in the fourth quarter. Mitchell Robinson might be hurt. That's a team that could be down to 6 or 7 guys. And it's a younger team, but the Pacers can go 9 or 10 deep. And if they start running and keeping that pace up, you could wear the Knicks down. And it could just be, all right, man, we're going to let Brunson get 50 because the Pacers seem to like, all right, we'll let, Middleton's getting 50 every night. It's like, we'll let somebody get 50. Do we think Hart, Anunoby, and McBride can beat us? And I take, Hart, Anunoby, and McBride over our, over Turner, Siakam, and, Nesmith and Nembhard. I take our 4 over their 4. So I think it could be a really interesting series. It'd be great home courts. Like I said, man, I give the Pacers a puncher's chance. And then if we're going to be real podcasters and look ahead, if this Porzingis thing is real and he is hurt, I still think the Celtics are a better team, but that drastically changes the dynamic of that Celtics team. And, I don't think the Pacers would win that series, but it'd be fun to think about. And that is not as good of a Celtics team without Porzingis.
Totally agree. I think we just decided the Pacers are going to the NBA Finals, Scott.
It could be that, here's the only thing I think the Pacers need to be worried about in having a run here is, again, beat the Bucks, win all these series. And this is not something to be worried about, but it's something I think that this is where podcasts are great, just two guys talking. Because I do look at what happened with the Hawks in 2021 in Atlanta. They get to the Eastern Conference Finals in kind of a fluky way. But then I feel like they felt like, all right, man, well, we're a step ahead of schedule, and so we got to now plan to win a title the next year. It's like, no, you kind of just got there in a fluke, kind of like the Trailblazers got to the Western Conference Finals that one year and then just got like smoked by, was it the Lakers, I think?
Yep.
And that was kind of like, all right, things broke correctly for you and you got there. And dude, if the Pacers beat the Knicks and they're in the Eastern Conference Finals, it would be kind of a fluky way to get there. You're still there, man. I'd much rather be there than doing we're going to Cancun on TNT, with Shaq and Charles. So there's no knock to doing it. I do think that if we get there in the Eastern Conference Finals, I just hope that the fans and the organization understands like this is more fluky and not like, oh, we jumped a step and now we're a title contender. Like we're still probably a team that is going to struggle to get out of the first round, and we need to focus on as such. So that would be my only, being concerned about good things problem. I guess I would put that under.
Yeah, or what I think is a great point that you're making. Like you look at the Suns, they made the NBA Finals 3 seasons ago.
Yeah.
And they did that on the back of Booker and then a lot of great like depth pieces, right? And they had great depth.
Yeah.
And then they basically cashed all those depth pieces in for these superstar pieces that aren't meshing together, and now they just got swept out of the first round. So it's like you also want to make sure that if you're trying to go all in, like, does it make sense? It doesn't for the Pacers is basically what we're getting at, to like just mess your cap situation up, mess your chemistry up.
Yeah.
Like I love what they did for Siakam. I still think they're a player away, but I don't think they necessarily are a player away like next season. Like, let Mathurin mature, let Halliburton and Siakam get an offseason under their belt.
Let Jarris Walker play.
That is also kind of a thing. And then you've got Shepherd. Like they're in just such a good situation with their youth and their contracts, and I would hate to see them try to accelerate this thing and end up it biting them in the butt. Which is kind of what we're getting at. Like,
no, I completely agree, and that is. That's the only concern is if they have a little run here, the team can be like, all right, man, we're going to trade, Mathurin and Walker and Ben Shepherd for a bunch of pieces. We're going to get Paul George. And then we're going to sign somebody else, and you create this, pseudo super team. And you're right. The Suns are in a spot now where they're probably like in the worst position. They went from being a finals team with a lot of options to being in the worst position. And again, the thing that we've talked about a bunch on this pod that we'll continue to talk about, what makes this Pacers team so nice and where we're at is they have so many good contracts and young players, which is just so valuable right now in the NBA. You got Ben Mathurin next year at $7 million, the year after on a team option at $9 million, and then you have these extension rights. That's huge. You have Jarris Walker, who doesn't play, but he's on a rookie contract. You have Nesmith at $11 million a year for the next 3 years. That's a phenomenal contract. You still have Turner next year at $20 million. If you can get him in that range, that's a phenomenal contract for where he's at. Whereas you look at, my buddy is the Bucks fan. I was kind of joking with him, like, have fun in 3 years. Go look at their roster. I will here in a sec. In 2 years, they're paying, I think, 4 guys $178 million between Giannis and Dame and Middleton and Portis. Their salary cap for 4 dudes is 178 already. And then you've got to figure out all those ancillary pieces. It's really, really hard. You're seeing teams like the Lakers, like the Bucks, like the Suns having a real hard time finding those other pieces. You end up being on the D'Angelo Russell train, and you're in these spots, and even for the Bucks, like Pat Bev. Pat Bev was available for anybody at the free agent, deadline this year. There's a reason why. So yeah, it's something where I think they have to look at it as like, we're still growing organically, and you maybe take a step back next year to take a bigger step forward the year after.
Absolutely. I'm total agreement. And in the way that Pritchard has operated, I think
I agree. I'm not worried about it.
I don't think that he's going to try to accelerate things for the sake of it. I think he knows that he's got a good thing going right now, and they're kind of on the gravy train right now in terms of whatever happens. So I don't have a ton of concern, like you said, just because of who's at the helm.
I would also say I'm pulling up the Bucks contracts right now. It's fun to do just to make yourself feel a little bit better. Even the Halliburton contract that he signed looks pretty good. I mean, he's starting, July 1, he'll get the max extension, but it's 35, 38, 41, 44, 46. That's not bad. I mean, consider you look at Dame Lillard, who's not even able to play. His next 3 years are 48, 58, 63. Those are big, big, big boy numbers. That's a lot of money. The fact that you have Halliburton at 29 years old, only making $46 million in 2028, 2029, the end of the decade, when the salary cap will probably be an extra $30 million. That's a great contract to have him under.
Absolutely. Again, like, hats off to the Pacers brass that have gotten him in this situation. And, they've got guys that understand the cap and the first apron and second apron and all that stuff, and have negotiated great deals and have been patient in those deals. And they're in a good spot for like forward looking.
Yeah, but it all happens tonight. You got to get it done tonight. But I can't deny I'm looking ahead to a Knicks series and the Hicks versus the Knicks. And like my 11-year-old James, I'm like, all right, if we win tonight, in the next couple of days, we're going to watch that Reggie Miller 30 for 30, give him the primer, let him understand what's going on. And as electric as that arena was for Game 3 and Game 4, I feel like Gainbridge will be at another level if we're playing the Knicks in the Eastern Conference semis, because there'll be something that happens at MSG. And it'll also be kind of fun, too. This is my last thing, and part of the reason we started this pod is I love the NBA. I love listening to NBA content. It is always annoying to me, and I understand it, how no matter what series we're in, it's always just kind of thrown to the back burner, where, even like Bill Simmons and Ryan Russillo, I love their pod, and they did a 2-part 4-hour podcast after the weekend of basketball, and their Pacers talk was kind of limited to, we got to go to break. Oh yeah, let's talk about the Pacers real quick. Like, yeah, I mean, they're up, and the Bucks and anybody. It's like, all right, well, what are you gonna do? All right, well, moving on, we're gonna do that. It's like nobody ever talks about the Pacers. If we're playing the Knicks, they're gonna have to, because everyone has to talk about the Knicks. So at least we'll ancillarily get talked about through that.
I will say the TNT guys were on the Pacers train from the start, even before all these injuries and stuff. Obviously the Giannis injury was there, but like Charles Barkley and those guys, they all picked the Pacers to win this series. So I will say that at least those guys gave the Pacers some credit, and all that is coming because of they watched them in the in-season tournament when the Pacers had to play their way into the national spotlight there as well, before anybody kind of even knew who Tyrese Halliburton was, and he had his coming out party. So that's all great stuff too. One other thing I wanted to note too about the Giannis situation is, in the back of his mind, like, I know that we talked about, like, the Bucks are like, hey, is it even worth trying to bring him back here? I think in his mind too, he's thinking, I'm going to go play for my national team here in a couple months, and I want to be healthy for that. And because it's a big deal for those guys to represent their countries and things. And so I wonder if that's playing in his mind as well, of like, I don't want to re-aggravate something and I miss out on that opportunity as well. And for what? Like, I would be interested. Obviously, he would never come out and say that, but I do wonder if that's something that's playing in his mind as well.
That's interesting. Yeah, I do wonder, and it's just I just don't know what the benefit of playing him at this point is.
Right.
You're going to have to come back from a 3-1 lead, and then are you going to play him against the Knicks? Like, I don't know. And is he going to just be 100% and just run you through the playoffs? Don't know. But if he comes back, I mean, again, I think the fact that Dame is injured also affects. But that's a great point about the national team. It's like, if he wants to play that, at this point, if he's slightly hurt, if he's going to do a deep playoff run with the Bucks, that probably means he's not going to play in the Olympics.
Yep.
And maybe he's like, you know what? Do I want to do that and get bounced in the Eastern Conference Finals, or just sit out one more game and start resting now for the Olympics? That's a great call. One last thing I have for you. If we make it to the second round, we play the Knicks and have like a fun 5 or 6 game series against the Knicks. We're going to get, I would assume we get more national TV games next year. I want you to guess the number you think we're going to get. But more importantly, given this, that we now have a little bit of something with the Bucks, we would have a series under our belt against the Knicks. Is there a world where the Pacers get a Christmas Day game next season, which I don't even know the last time that happened. So I'll leave those two questions for you on that.
I hope so. That would be that's like my dream is the Pacers playing on Christmas Day. Yeah, I think let me put a number on national TV. Let's say 6 games on national TV.
I would hope
this
so.
year.
I mean, there's a sea change that the NBA probably doesn't want to have, but needs to have. In that this year you had a lot of Lakers games, a lot of Suns games, a lot of Bucks games on national TV, and I'm not just
They need to promote their young stars.
I'm not even putting the Pacers in there, but you need to have more Spurs games. You need to have more Magic. I think the Magic only had one national TV game.
Timberwolves.
Yeah, the Timberwolves need to be up there. The Magic need to be up there. It does feel like we're getting to a sea change in the league where a lot of those, the Clippers, whatever, a lot of Mavs games, like, okay, they're still in the playoffs, but definitely the Suns, the Bucks, and the Lakers, they don't get their shit together in the offseason. Those teams are done. That was 5 years ago. There are Timberwolves, Magic, Pacers. Those are teams that need to be featured more nationally.
Yeah, no, I'm in total agreement. I hope that, because this year they had technically like one prior to the in-season tournament, right?
Right. And then they made the Pelicans game at home a national one. They moved that over. And I looked at the slate. A lot of those were garbage games. That nationally.
Man, I hardly ever tuned in because it was like I don't care about this at all.
You think we'll get a Christmas Day game?
I still think they're a year away. I want them to because they're what 4 games.
There's 4 games. All right, hold on. We're doing this right now. And then we'll be done. There's 4 games. All right, so I'm gonna look at.
You're assuming it'll be like an NBA Finals rematch or something.
Okay, so there's 8 teams. They're gonna get a game. I'm just gonna start naming teams. Denver is getting a game.
Yep.
Okay, I think Minnesota is going to get a game.
I agree. LeBron's getting a game wherever he's at.
I mean, no, you're right. I'm huffing at how true that is and how annoying it is because the Lakers are going to be garbage. Okay. Yeah, no, you're right. The LA Lakers. The Clippers are going to have a new arena. Because we're running out of, God damn it, we're running out of teams already because Luka's going to be on there, you'd think.
The Knicks will be on there.
All right, so hold on. I have the Nuggets, the Timberwolves, the Lakers.
Mm-hmm.
I agree. All right, in the East, the Celtics for sure. The Knicks. All right. Do we think the Bucks? Does Giannis get that game now?
Probably. Even though they shouldn't, but they've got Dame and Giannis and.
So the Sixers, could we? So all right. So now we have 3 teams left. I'm kind of doing 4 and 4. So you have the on the West, you have the Nuggets, the Timberwolves, the Lakers, Clippers or Mavs. I would say probably the Mavs. I think they're going to focus on Luka more than the Clippers at this point because the Clippers could be.
I think so.
Yeah. So we'll put the Mavs in there. You have the Celtics, the Knicks, the Bucks. Do they feature the Cavs? They feature the Magic. Is that where the Pacers get that?
There was actually
spot?
5 Christmas Day games this past season.
Oh, okay. Well, that gives us more room.
This past season, it was Bucks, Knicks, Warriors, Nuggets, Celtics, Lakers, Sixers, Heat, and Mavericks, Suns.
Okay, so if we dump the Suns, I could see I think there's room for the Pacers to get in there. If you dump the Suns and the Sixers, I feel like if the Pacers can put up a real showing in this series against the Knicks, I think they could earn themselves a midseason tournament game, a Christmas Day game. So maybe you end up playing.
Let's say it's down to Pacers and Magic. Who do they pick?
Yeah, I think it matters how the second round goes. If the Magic kind of have a nondescript exit to the Celtics, and then you have something there where it's all right, could you do the Bucks versus the Pacers on Christmas Day? There's a budding rivalry there. If something happens in this Knicks Pacers series, maybe you put that one in there. There's just no other storylines between on that list again of the games. Were they all were there any West versus East Christmas Day, or is it all West, East?
The Celtics and Lakers were the
only crossover.
Yeah.
So if you figure we got to be playing an Eastern Conference team, I could see them giving it to us with the Bucks. Like there's enough there that you could do something with that. I just don't know
Or
if
you just take the Bucks out and put us against the Knicks. That was the Bucks Knicks was the game last year.
Yeah.
Like
No, I mean, I think for that to happen, I think something has to happen in this series where it becomes a memorable moment somehow, or it needs to be like a 7-game series that goes the distance. And I think that's possible. I think I can see the Celtics winning in 5 and the Pacers going to 7 with the Knicks, and then they will, in my mind, earn themselves a spot, which of course we know they're not going to get. They'll probably put LeBron on twice. LeBron will probably play the first game and the last game somehow.
Six NBA MVPs played on Christmas Day last season, so you're probably going to get that just so that you've got the Nuggets, Bucks, Sixers, Warriors, Suns, and Lakers right off the bat.
I mean, we could take the Heat spot.
Yeah.
I mean, the Heat haven't done much. Jimmy may or may not be playing, so it's possible. It'd be fun. Do you remember the last time we played on Christmas? I know these things are all possible to find on the internet. I don't
Have
remember.
we?
I don't feel like even during the Paul George year we were getting those games.
I remember the Pacers playing on Thanksgiving before, but I can't. Actually, here's a graphic. We played in 2004.
Wow. Okay.
This graphic has every team's last time they played on Christmas. The Hawks haven't done it since '89. The Hornets have never done it. Pistons haven't done it since 05. Pacers 04. Timberwolves in 2017. Magic in 11. Kings in 03. Yeah, those are the only ones that are in the Pacers ballpark.
All right. It'd be nice. It'd be nice to get back into that realm. I feel like we're kind of the part of that group. And although with the Pacers' luck, they'll do it. They'll play us and be like, but this is the first year we're going to have an NBA TV game on Christmas Day, or like this is one that is blacked out. You have to watch it on Bally Sports.
9 in the morning while you're opening presents.
Yeah. Although you saw we got the we're going to Paris. We're the team. Yep. We're suddenly, but now the Jacksonville Jaguars. Like we're the team getting sent across the pond to play in the Europe games.
Hey man, whatever works.
Fair enough. All right, Tony.
Also, the Grizzlies never played on Christmas Day.
Yeah, it's okay. That's fair. True. All right, Tony. Dude, as always, it was awesome talking to you, and we'll be back later on in the week, either previewing Game 6 or talking about the end of the series and really previewing the series against hopefully the Knicks. Although I'd love to see the Sixers extend that series and just have both those teams get beaten up a little bit.
Absolutely. Always a pleasure, Scott.
All right, man. For all you out there, thank you for listening. If you have any questions, shoot us an email at rightupmeridian@gmail.com. And for the Right Up Meridian podcast, this is Scott signing off.